Welcome back to the Morning Mist 99, Above and Beyond Schizophrenia. Now, we are going to talk about part two of marijuana, schizophrenia, and spirituality. Now, we left off in the last video. I cut into what I was originally going to say and introduce an article looking at marijuana as an entheogen. But before that, I was talking about matter being energy. Now, I thought this was a commonly understood thing. Obviously, I don't know a lot about physics, but turns out that's not the general consensus. It was more thought of as being particles or waves. Now, I found an article. Challenging this notion. Right? A physicist actually came to a conclusion that matter itself is, because we know the universe and everything is made up of matter, but what is matter made up of, right? And so the thought was particles and waves. Now it's thought to be energy. Who knew? Who the heck knew? Yeah. Anyways, so without further ado, let's get a look at this article. Physicists, or this is the science alert. Physicists suggest all matter may be made up of energy fragments, from Larry M. Silverberg, The Conversation, 11 December 2020. So here, this guy's talking about what I'm talking about. But matter is what makes up the universe. But what makes up matter? This question has long been tricky for those who think about it, especially for the physicists. Reflecting recent trends in physics, my colleague Jeffrey Eishen and I have described an updated way to think about matter. We propose that matter is not made of particles or waves, as was long thought, but more fundamentally, that matter is made of fragments of energy. Now, I guess obviously there's different schools of thoughts, and this is one person's understanding. And this article goes into more about it, and it starts talking about Einstein's and some of his theories and so forth. And I'm not going to go into all of that right now because it's not where I want to go. It's not a physics lesson, but it's an interesting article, and I could post the link in the video, but you can check it out if you want. It's really not pertinent to where I'm going, but I just try to show a little bit of that this isn't just some crazy understanding that I'm talking about, but there's more scientific evidence out there, right? So that's why I'm reading this. Okay, now I know one article, one person's perspective, regardless of their title, does not prove or disprove anything. It's not enough. But just for the sake of this conversation, let us lend our consideration, our thoughts to this. Let's say it's correct for this moment, right? Or at least possible. What does that mean? Where am I going with this? What I'm saying is matter as energy means it is operating at a certain frequency, right? In this level of existence, of reality of this universe, there's things are operating at a certain frequency, and thus we are able to interact with it because we're on the same level, our physical selves. Now, even within this space, within your space, there are energy, or I should say pictures and sounds that are passing through me, passing through those walls, passing through you and your walls and so forth. And these are actually transmitted to your TV, through your computer, right? This is another layer of energy that's operating right on this world, right in front of our eyes, and yet we cannot perceive it. Our eyes, physical eyes, are not tuned to be able to see that level of energy. It's a dimension. So when I speak of dimension, I am not speaking of a parallel dimension or universe where there's another me, another you, living a different life or whatever that entails. I'm speaking of right here, just on a different energy frequency, there's something else happening, right? And so these signals from television and radio are picked up by receivers within television and our computers, which then, and the radios, which then converts these back to pictures and sounds. So that, to me, that's very interesting. Now, consider for a minute that if listen, I have this understanding, right? I have this understanding, and some other people have this as well. It certainly did not originate with me, but this is similar to a lot of people across the globe, and that is that as human beings, we are more than flesh. We're more than a physical body that we see. So if you're a person who only considers the five senses of the physical body, then things might, get misunderstood or lost in translation. But we have the physical body, and that's on one level of frequency. Now, if there is a spirit and a soul within us, now cut me open, peel back my layers, and you will not find it, right? If it's there, shouldn't you be able to see it, to recognize it? But you can't see it. Why? Because just as I'm talking, as I spoke about energy and the different layers where there's signals passing through, I believe the spirit is within the body, but is operating on a different frequency, a higher frequency, though it is tethered by the body. So our eyes, just like how it cannot perceive the pictures going through this room, can't perceive the spirit or the soul, because they're operating on two separate frequencies where the spirit is on a higher frequency. It is within another dimension. So now, when we come to marijuana, and remember Alan Watts saying that this is a gate to, something else, it's consciousness or whatever. Forgot exactly how he worded it. But marijuana now is a drug that you ingest into your system, and somehow it actually affects the energy within the spirit, of the spirit, I guess, and it unanchors that from the body. Now, the only time this happens, all the time naturally, is when you're sleeping or given to meditation. But marijuana now allows that to unanchor, to release, and it actually puts one in a other dimension, a higher frequency dimension, as well as within this dimension. So you're walking in two worlds when you're on marijuana. You're walking in two worlds. It's almost like you're having a dream while you are awake, right? Partially. You're not all the way in, because that would mean to fully release from the body. Some have come to term that astral projection, right? It's when there's a full de-anchoring of or unanchoring of the spirit and the body, while you are still conscious, not just going unconscious like you're asleep, right? So, but marijuana allows this to happen, and because we are unaware of this, we have all kind of experiences, and we giggle a lot, and we call it tripping out. But we don't know that it's almost like we're dreaming. We're having that similar experience. So now, here's where I'm getting with this whole energy thing. If I am open into this higher energy plane, and there are various other energies passing through. I'm not just talking about television signals, because there's a lot of other energy there in this place, right? So now, if something were to interact with me, I'm going to respond to it, but I won't know what the heck I'm responding to. Though we might respond in some ways, we don't know what we're responding to, because we can't perceive these. We can't identify anything, but all we see is what is in front of us, and then we are reacting to other senses, right? So the body, the spirit is connecting to something, is having an experience, and the body is responding in a way that it's unintelligent, right? It's intelligent for the body, but to the spirit, it's just it's a nonsensical thing, because you know what I mean. It's like if you see fire that's coming and you decide to lay on the ground, or you run towards it instead of going the other way. Or you start dancing. It's not a very intelligent response. And that kind of that's how we respond to schizophrenia, because we can't see it. We can't respond in a proper way, right? If we understand to respond to certain things that come in the physical world, because we can clearly see it, we can clearly identify it, and so we know how to meet them with proper responses, or more intelligent response. But if we can't identify what is before us, what is happening to us, then the response is going to be something that's just not effective. You ever hear the terminology in the spirit of the season, in the spirit of giving, in the spirit of, what exactly does that mean? In the spirit of something, right? What does that mean? What exactly is a spirit? But why do we use that? Do we even know what the heck we're saying? There's a lot of things we say, and I don't think we know what we're saying. We just say it because we hear it and we repeat it, but we don't really think about what we're saying. And the very thing that we say will turn around and deny the very existence of the thing we use, and we say it exists. It's very interesting, right? So now, you ever been to a sporting event? Now, here in Edmonton, in Canada, really, hockey is a big thing. I've been to one hockey game in my life. It was an old timers game way back in the day. Now, if you go to a hockey game, any sporting game, but I'm using hockey because that's just what's the thing here. But if you go to a hockey game and your home team is winning, what's the atmosphere like? Any sporting event, what's the atmosphere like? Right? Even if they're losing, there's a certain energy in the place. If they're winning, it's loud, people are cheering, they're drinking, they're having a good time, they're booing, it's a whole lot of fun. Why? It's in the spirit of the game, right? They're in the spirit of what's going on, and this energy is electric. But these people are all connected by this game, right? There's a could be like an invisible thread tying them together. This unites them, right? And it just gives a certain energy. If somebody else is there, like me, who don't really care for hockey, I'm just like, I'm just chilling. Although it could be all right, but I'm not gonna get that excited over it. Any sport, really. I'm not really a sports guy, but I'd be like a strange thing, man. I'd be like a strange thing as everybody else is high-fiving and shouting, and I'm just there sitting there just waiting for the time to pass. I'm a strange individual because I'm not in the same spirit as them. I haven't been caught up in this energy, right? That pulls them and unites them, right? So The spirit, you might hear people talk about spirit, but it's like it's a form of energy, right? It's a form of energy. Now, it is a real thing, very real thing. You just maybe use different words for it, or you haven't really given a lot of thought to it. It's a very real thing. Things. Now, if I were to use marijuana and it brings me into this space, or elevate my spirit, my energy, and there is all kinds of energy in this place, right? All kinds of energy. And people connect to it all the time, to different sources, right? This is where you get depression. This is where you get aggression. You get happiness, all kinds of stuff is there. It doesn't originate in you. What do you have to get these things? You know what I mean? Like, you tap into something, right? You get a vision of something and it pulls you. Where is this coming from? It's coming from another place, right? And it pulls you, and you lean into it, and it's stronger. It attracts you. So there's a lot of different energy in this place, and whatever it is. No, let's go back to marijuana. If I'm giving myself to marijuana, and marijuana is the kind of drug that allows you to lean into whatever it is you're doing. If you get high, I got high one time, and I was looking for something, and I was combing through inch by inch of the ground, mesmerized by texture, by smell, by just caught up. Almost forgot what I was looking for. I was just caught up in the act of searching. It was crazy. It was crazy. You can watch paint dry, and it'll be the most amazing thing, right? That's what marijuana does. Is allows you to lean into whatever it is you're doing. Sometimes people say marijuana makes you lazy, right? A couch potato, because if you're watching TV, you're relaxing. It allows you to melt into that couch. It does. Right? In order for you to get out of that, you need to tap into a different energy, which can be difficult if you already surrendered into something else. Right? So it doesn't necessarily mean to make you lazy. You can be active as well. When I was younger, smoking weed, man, me and my buddies, we would watch some old kung fu movies, and we'll smoke some weed and go outside and beat the crap out of each other. We wouldn't hold back. We would knock each other in the faces, kick punches. We didn't hold back. And it's just because we're high. We just kind of allowed us to let go and give into all that we're doing, right? So now imagine you're in this place, you're high, and now energy of, let's say, a voice or paranoia or something contacts your energy, right? Comes across and contacts it. What do? There's different reactions. A lot of it is also what you're more naturally inclined to do. Sometimes it's just what catches you and draws your attention. Attention, it's so important because it pulls your attention, and what do? You start looking at it. And by that, you are not by being so intrigued in it, you start to lean towards that energy, and it is like a magnetic pull, and there's the energy connection strengthens, right? It's like you see, like for me, when I used to see demonic images on people, I would be taken in by it. All I would do is focusing on it, thinking about what the heck, just being caught up about how it looks and just the figure. And considering that are people I trust, my family, my friends, I bought into that. So what happened was it got stronger because I leaned into that. Right? It's a doorway that I opened and stepped into, shut it behind me pretty much, and kept walking. Right? So these things that when you lean to an energy, it gets stronger the more you give yourself to it. With marijuana, it makes it so much easier to give yourself to this thing, right? And just the fact that you're put yourself in this place, anything can happen. And even if you do come down from your high, there's still like a resonance. There's still like a connection. and you've been exposed to something and you don't know, and you have no idea that you have. And that's why I think they say even if you just by smoking marijuana, you are I forgot how many times likely to develop schizophrenia at an earlier time than if you would if you would without it, right? So it's like, I don't really understand a lot how that works, but it is that doorway that puts you into a place that connects you to a lot of different things. And though you come back, there's still something that remembers, within the mind that can still feel something. You don't know it's there, right? And when you turn to this thing, it's almost like a magnetic pole. And the more you turn towards it, which is why a lot of people are stuck with schizophrenia symptoms, because all they do is continue to engage in it. And by doing that, you just strengthen the connection. It strengthens the magnetic pull. And you try to turn away from it, guess what? You're going to pull right back, right? Because the magnetic lines are still connected. And so even though you turn this way, even a full 180, there's still a connection, and you let go for just a second, and boom, you slam right back to it, right? So it's not impossible to do it. It just takes consistency, and by turning away from it, just like how you're turning into for example, like I was talking about the television and radios and things like that, but you turn, the mind also is a receiver, right? The mind is a receiver. That's why you go in this place and you are receptive of signals, right? You don't create signals, you receive signals, right? A lot of your thoughts you don't create, you receive them, right? Think about that. Well, why is it that things come into your mind and you're like, what the heck? Or you're like, oh, get out of my head. You didn't consciously think of certain things. You don't. Sometimes things just come into your mind. Visions, thoughts, vivid thoughts come into your mind, and you wonder where the heck this comes from. Why? Because the mind is a receiver, just like in your TV. That's why it's impressing me so much that we actually create this thing, technology, in a way that actually reflects us, and we have no idea what we're doing. But a lot of it is reflecting ourselves, and that's what the mind is. It receives signals, thoughts, pictures, but we can also direct what signal we want to focus on. Positive, negative, but when you're given to the negative, it's a lot stronger, and that pulls us in. And now if you want to turn away, we have to, just like in a TV, you want to switch a channel, you turn you back in the day, you used to turn the dial, a radio, that's what you do sometimes. You change the channel, you just totally change the picture. If you're on a rainy, stormy, nightmarish thing on your TV, you want to watch something more cheery and energetic, just flip the channel. Guess what happens? Your mood changes. There's another energy that you tap into, right? Just by looking at something and allow it to enter into your mind, it changes your mind, it changes your physical reaction, changes everything, right? So that's what the mind has to do. We have to change the channel from voices, from all these fearful things, paranoid doubts. We have to change the channel now to something that is more positive. And like I'm saying, these magnetic lines are strong, so it's going to try to pull you back. So we got to be intentional about what we're doing and to keep that focus. If we pull back, we go right back the other way, right? And by time and consistency, the lines weaken, the magnetism weakens. And this is going to fall away while the magnetic lines of force that you're turning towards, those lines strengthen, right? And that's going to become the stronger magnetism, right? While this one weakens. That's how it works, right? So it's very interesting, I guess. I guess what the word I'm looking for. But that's how marijuana allows us to get caught in these negative lines of force, negative energy pulls, and keep us there, and really allows us access to that in the first place in a lot of instances. Now, can marijuana be helpful in some instances? The answer is yes, right? Because also it's sometimes how we're naturally inclined to respond to certain things, or the way our mind naturally way it leans, right? That can have whether it's a more positive or negative effects. Some people use marijuana, it helps their pain. Sometimes people use marijuana to alleviate their schizophrenic symptoms, right? It actually reduces that, right? So it's not that marijuana itself does not connect you to anything negative. It just puts you in the space, and whatever happens, that's up to you to decide, right? And if you're not conscious of what you're doing, then you're gonna be reacting, not acting. That's a tough place to be. We want to act with intent. Even people who use it to alleviate their symptoms, a lot of that is not acting but reacting, because that's what their mind would naturally pull away from the psychotic symptoms, and the station will tune to a different channel, right? That's what it does for them. Naturally tune to a different channel. And they can do that where somebody else will tune into the very thing that they don't want to get to, right? It all depends on the individual mind, So I'm not saying yes or no to whether somebody should do it or not. Me personally, somebody asked me if I used marijuana with my schizophrenia stuff, and there's two answers to that. There was, back in the day when I was actually in between hospitalizations, I smoked marijuana and I would become straight paranoid. I'd drive into a movie rental store with my buddy, my sister's ex-boyfriend, and I would, we'd be smoking weed sometimes, and I would just be paranoid. I was one moment I was talkative and stuff before, and then I was getting high, and I was just quiet. I was just like, just gone, because all that paranoia stuff started coming back. Now, and you've heard people, I've listened to some people who will smoke marijuana, and they were not in the psychotic phase, but smoked marijuana, they were good for a bit, and then suddenly, sharp decline. Started freaking out, losing themselves, right? Because it's the thing, if you don't know to control these doors, it'll take control of you. Now, I smoked marijuana last time was early in 2021 here, right? Don't ask me why. I guess, I wanted to try it, and I've done it a few times because I was like, okay, I think I got this. Because if I'm right about these doors and everything, then I should be able to handle this. So I smoked some weed, and it was good, man. I was on the couch watching some shows with my wife, and we're having a good time and laughing and all this stuff. And suddenly, start to feel this feeling coming on me. My mind, the memories start to open. The door of memory start to open, man. And I start to think of how marijuana used to make me feel back in the day, and the things that used to come with it. And now the past was becoming into the present. And I started to look at my wife with the same expectations of hearing her speak my thoughts or say something ridiculing me in some way. And I was like, look, and I was just looking at her as kind of weird with this expectation wise. And it was no longer having a good time. I was starting to shrink. But then, that's what I did. I looked at her, I put my hand around her, and I kissed her. I kissed her and hugged her. And then I just pushed everything back. The door shut. I was right back in the present, having a good time again. Right? So it's the kind of thing where if you are not aware, it can be very dangerous. And that's why you see people who will use it after going through schizophrenic stuff, and they'll just descend because the door opens and you have no control of these doors. And if you don't know that you actually have control, then it will control you and it will lead you into madness, right? So I've done that multiple times with weed, and I've smoked it and I've been good. I can smoke it and be good, right? But it's just, if you don't understand what the heck's happening, then, you know, it's these other doors start opening, the imagination, the memories, the reasoning, all that stuff, right? And it's a constant battle, right? And it can be overwhelming. So it's not something to be taken lightly. Okay, I think we reached the end of this video. I was hoping to finish it all in just 2 parts, but there's going to be a part 3 because I don't want to make this too long. But there's another part I want to connect to this, which actually shows us just how marijuana is a drug, but it's also an enhancement. And we just learned that it's an enhancement, but it is a shortcut for something else. And I'm going to talk about that in my next video, how this is done naturally, the same raising of the energy, the spiritual energy, can be achieved in natural means, or marijuana just gives us a shortcut to that. And so I want to get into that a little bit. So hopefully you got something from this video. If you're someone who is struggling with schizophrenia, then hopefully this at least gives you another perspective, opens your perspective, your understanding, considerations that it could be more at play, and maybe empowers you to take charge, man. Take charge of this thing, in that you are not just a victim. You are not just have to go along for the ride, but you have more control than you think. It's just believing it and fighting for it, right? Because if the energy of your mind is being hijacked by another energy, you are still present, and you can still cancel that energy out by switching to another energy. And so hopefully that is kind of empowers you to do that. If you are a parent who has a child or children that are suffering, then hopefully you gain something where you can instruct the child with a bit more understanding of what needs to be done. Keep in mind that patience, understanding, all those things are necessary, and but it'll hopefully help to influence that child to switch that station, and to see this as a something that they can overcome, that they can do well against. It's just having the right attitude, consistency, faith, and courage. And so continue to encourage, continue to believe, continue to be strong. Until next time, I'm Paul, the Morning Mist 99, above and beyond schizophrenia. It's where we're coming from, it's where we are, that's where we're going. Until next time.